Hello, everybody. Today, my colleague Yongshin and I will present about database security and data protection. This is the agenda for today. As you can see, we will talk about the need for database security. Then we will discuss about a solution for database security, a little bit about the basics of encryption, and then my colleague will talk about one of the most prevalent database attacks, SQL injections, which will be followed by a real-world example of data theft due to SQL injection attacks. Digital transformation drives efficiency and scale for existing products and services, while also making possible new business models that drive growth and profitability. Enterprises are embracing the opportunity moving towards digitization at an exponential rate to leverage all that digital technology has to offer. But in this process, organizations are leaving the security of their sensitive data at risk in the rush of deployment. The overall adoption of cloud, big data, IoT, containers, mobile payments, and blockchain technologies by enterprises is at record levels to drive this transformation. With some technologies like big data reaching 99% adoption, cloud reaching 100% adoption, IoT reaching 94% adoption, mobile payments reaching 91% adoption, and with 94% of the organizations globally planning to use this sensitive data within these environments. The scales of adoption make this problem hypercritical as organizations are now using many vendors and environments. The extent and impact of increased threats is most clearly shown in levels of data breaches and vulnerabilities. Data breaches rates are at an all time high. That is, 67% of organizations now report that they have been breached globally, and 71% in the US. And data breaches rates are highest in the last year. That is, 36% of enterprises globally were breached in the last year alone, and almost half of all organizations, that is 46% in the US. In the year before that, 26% of enterprises were breached globally, and in the year prior to that, 21% enterprises were breached globally. As we can see that this number goes on increasing exponentially. As a consequence, 44% of the organizations globally feel very or extremely vulnerable to data threats. So, what is the solution for database security? Encryption is a critical solution. Encryption establishes secure identity with digital certificates for devices. Encryption protects data in transit. Encryption protects data on devices. And encryption and access control helps organizations meet compliance requirements for back end data stores. From the figure, we can see the percentage of requirement for encryption to drive the use of digitally transformative technologies. For cloud, it is 44%, for big data, it is 35%, and for IoT, it is 48%. In the next year, a lot of database security tools will be purchased. Tokenization, encryption with bring your own key BYOK, and hardware security modules top this list. We have spoken a lot about encryption till now, but what is encryption? As you can see from the figure, unencrypted data, often referred to as plain text, is encrypted using an encryption algorithm and an encryption key. This process generates ciphertext that can only be viewed in its original form if decrypted with a correct key. Decryption is simply the inverse of encryption, following the same steps but reversing the order in which the keys are applied. Today's most widely used encryption algorithms fall into two categories, symmetric and asymmetric. We have attached a document at the end of the slides if you are interested more into encryption. Now, my colleague will talk about a very famous but one of the most dangerous database intrusion tools.
Let's now talk about a possible database security problem one may face, which is SQL injection. What is SQL injection? SQL injection is one of the most common web hacking techniques. It is the placement of malicious code in SQL statements through web page input. The basic idea behind SQL injection is based on 1 equals 1 is always true. For example, we are retrieving data from user table using user ID, so we wrote select star from users where user ID equals 105. But what if we put in 105 and also or 1 equals 1? The SQL above is valid and will return all rows from the users table, since or 1 equals 1 is always true. A hacker might get access to all the usernames and passwords in a database by simply inserting a random user ID and or 1 equals 1 into the input field. Here's another example. This is a user logging on a website. A hacker might get access to usernames and passwords in the database by simply inserting or equals into the username or password text box. The code at the server will create a valid SQL statement, likely one on the down right. The SQL above is valid and will return all rows with the users table, since or equal is always true. There are more about what SQL injection can do. Tricking people into allowing a login without a valid password as we just mentioned. Alter data in the database without authorization. Access data without authorization. There were many SQL injections that actually happened in reality. VTech is a Hong Kongese global supplier of electronic learning products from infancy to preschool and the world's largest manufacturer of cordless phones. By using an SQL injection, the hacker was able to access, copy, and exfiltrate data held by VTech. The compromised data included information collected by VTech from children and their parents using VTech products and other devices, including parent account information, name, email address, password, and history of device purchases. Information about children, their name, gender, birth date, photos, and voice recordings, and chat messages between parents and their children. The breach affected over 500,000 Canadians and over 5 million Americans. Even though the hacker was arrested, the access data recovered from his devices, and there was no indication that the hacker disclosed the data to anyone other than a news reporter. This is still a really terrifying event. We found study published saying that the encryption is one of the great ways to deal with the SQL injection problem. We attached a paper in the reference. You can take a look if you are interested. Security attacks such as unauthorized access to the database, tampering with the existing data, modification or deletion of data should all be aware. Most important is that action should be taken to prevent these type of attacks. This is our presentation. Thank you.